Welcome to Scrunchy Time. I'm Nicole Hegstead, your fertility advocate. After 6 years of infertility and 3 miscarriages, I decided that I needed to become the advocate for my own body. If you're exhausted from struggling to get pregnant and want to know more about how I can help, check out my website at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And I'm Be Wild, speaking up for children in a world where mental and physical health of the next generation is being disregarded. I'm here to dish out the tough love truths that we need to wake up to as parents and Christians. If you're fed up with mixed opinions and ready to advocate for your own child, check out my website at www.thebewildlife.com.
Put your hair up and pay attention while we discuss today's hottest topics concerning female hormones and healthy kiddos.
We aren't silky.
We aren't crunchy. We're scrunchy.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button.
And a special thank you to those who make this financially possible. To support this podcast, please follow the link in our description.
Hi guys, welcome back to Scrunchy Time. So this week, Nicole and I really want to talk about, just continue this conversation about what's going on in our crazy world and talk about some things that have personally happened to Nicole and some things we've heard about through the grapevine with people or with hospitals and medical offices shutting down for non-necessary, did I say that right? Yeah, non-necessary procedures or surgeries or
appointments.
Appointments, there you go. Yeah. So we've Nicole's had a personal experience with this happening, and then through what we're into, she's heard some stuff about IVF and whatnot, and then I have some stuff I'm going to shed light on from history with my kid in the medical field, and we're just going to kind of vent, actually. I'm just going to be honest. We're just going to kind of let this go and get this off our chest, because this is really ridiculous. So I'm going to let Nicole take it away because she has a story to start us off. So
A story. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that. Like we really are just venting in this episode. Like there's a lot in this episode that's going to be about why we do what we do. I think that that's going to be the biggest issue. So as a lot of you know, my husband, a couple of months ago, like back in August, I found out that he had some blood in his stool, and we took him to the ER. I'll just recap some of that too for people who may not have heard that story. I came home from a trip, found blood in the toilet, asked him randomly, "You're not bleeding, are you?" And started chuckling. And he said, "Yeah, I am actually." And I was like, wait, what? Okay, for how long? Oh, a couple of weeks, like any man, he thought it was going to go away. And so I freaked out because I have an aunt who has died of colon cancer, and that's how they found out she had colon cancer. And so rushed him to the ER, and they said, "We think it's just an ulcer. Here's a doctor that you can go see." And so he went and saw the doctor. The doctor said, "I think it's just an ulcer or a hemorrhoid, but we need to do a colonoscopy." And then very next day, neither doctors were that concerned. They were both like, "This is totally fine. You're totally we need to put a rubber band around a hemorrhoid and you'll be good." And the next day, David lost his insurance. So we were kind of like, well, if it's just a hemorrhoid, we'll just focus on not stressing, focus on eating right, living right, all the things. So he was like, "This is my wake up call. I need to start eating better," everything like that. And sometime around the end of January now, he had been kind of bleeding off and on. I was trying to figure out a pattern to why he would stop bleeding and why he would start up again, but there was really nothing. Now I'm actually wondering if he wasn't telling me everything, because towards the end of January, he got a really strange blockage in his intestines where he could feel the lump, and it wasn't he wasn't passing anything. And then he started to get nauseous and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that's not good. And so he actually, I asked him finally, I was like, "So what did you eat? Did you eat anything?" And he's like, "Yeah, I ate at White Castle." And of course, I got angry because he knows better already. He knew better already back in August, claimed in August that like his life was changing, and then, you know, this. So that was a whole discussion that we won't discuss here. But
And for those of you that don't know, White Castle is like a worse version of McDonald's, right?
yes,
Because I didn't know this little. I'm
okay,
a hick
okay.
Western over here, so
It's
she had to explain that to me.
very Minneapolis, yeah. But other people talk about it too, so there must be other locations. But yeah, I hadn't heard of it till I came to Minneapolis. And yes, White Castle is like, honestly, I would say eat a like I always say, if you have to eat at fast food, don't choose McDonald's, right? Like if you have to eat at fast food, do not choose White Castle. Like it is like below McDonald's. Like I feel it. Like I even think about it and my body's just like, please don't put that in me. Like it's that bad. Like it's horrible. They taste delicious, but once it gets past your mouth, you're in trouble because it is not meant for human consumption on any level. Bad for you. Anyway, so we still didn't have insurance, and I was talking to him at the time, and I was like, you know, my only concern is like if we rush you into ER, like what are they going to do? Like, again, I go back to this question, what are they going to do that makes it worth $1,000 ER bill? Because that's what we're looking at minimum. If they do a CAT scan, you're looking at 10 grand, you know, somewhere around there. So is it worth, like, do we want to give this a couple days and see what's going on? And he was like, yeah, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It was just enough pressure to really kind of bother him throughout the day, but like he was doing fine. And then I want to say it was like 5 days in, he finally kind of like, he freaked out one night and he was like, this is not going away and this is a problem. And I was like, okay, well, are you going to take things that I've got for you? Because I had several supplements for him. I had a dandelion root tea, some aloe vera, some cayenne pepper, some apple cider vinegar, the stuff that I had been trying to get him to take that he was being very reluctant on and was convinced that he could get it to pass on his own. And so he took the dandelion root tea and ended up like 10 minutes later vomiting. And I was actually talking to another friend recently, like just yesterday. I didn't tell you about this, Bridget, but she had said that a lot of times, she knows a lot about naturopathic stuff too. And this makes total sense to me. She said a lot of times those herbs that are designed to help you kind of clean out or help with digestion, if it can't work one way, it'll actually help clean you out the other way. And she was saying maybe that's part of what happened there.
Yeah.
But anyway, he, like when he was done vomiting, he said, I feel so much better. Like, and he throughout the night actually felt the blockage move across his belly. It was really weird. He was like, oh, now it's over here. Oh, now it's over here. Like he knows exactly where his intestine lies now because he literally felt this blockage move across his belly. And he was saying like he felt like the muscles from contracting from the vomiting helped to like massage his intestines into movement again, which is just amazing in and of itself. But then he said the bleeding still wasn't going away, even though we'd gotten that to pass. There was still weird stuff going on throughout that blockage period. He lost probably 40 pounds because he wasn't digesting his food and he wasn't getting any nutrition into his body. And he actually stopped eating for like almost a week and he wasn't hungry. And so some of these symptoms were lining up with cancer, obviously. And I got really worried about that, obviously, because if it's that, you want to get on it right away. And it sounds like we've been really chill about this whole thing for the last 6 months while he's just bleeding. But it really, like, he had felt comfortable up until that time. And like I said, it would come and go. And so we'd be like, okay, well, maybe it's when you go off gluten, try that for a while. Okay, maybe it's when, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. And
well, and these things take time.
They do take time. Exactly.
Like that's just flat out.
The two doctors that he saw both said it's probably a hemorrhoid, no big deal, go home. And I was kind of like, you know, doctors love to throw around the C word, and if they thought that it was cancer, they'd be freaking out, you know. So I was kind of like, they're really chill about it. It's probably fine. So anyway, but the bleeding wasn't going away. We had the blockage, and he was finally like, I don't care if we have to pay for it. I want to get a colonoscopy at this point because we need to know what's going on so that way we can fix it. And I was like, absolutely, I agree. Let's just get this taken care of, because between the weight loss and like I said, the appetite had reduced. And then he still felt a little bit of pressure on one side, and just all the symptoms were lining up to be something that may be more serious than just hemorrhoids at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So he called around and price checked everywhere. And we got in with a doctor. It ended up being the same doctor he had seen previously, which was kind of hysterical on my part. And he's going to be mad that I share this, but he spent all morning price calling, and I kept saying, why don't you try the doctor you've seen and see what their prices are? And he was like, they're going to be super expensive. And they ended up being the cheapest one. So yeah, not to brag, but I was right. Anyway, so we got in with that doctor, and that was Tuesday, a week ago now. And Monday comes along, and he gets a phone call literally a half an hour before he starts taking the diuretic drugs, so that way he'll be completely cleaned out for a colonoscopy. And they say, the Department of Health has recommended that we cancel all unnecessary appointments, so your appointment may or may not be canceled. And he said, well, like, I would understand that if this was like, you know, colon cancer runs in my family and I get a colonoscopy once a year and I've had nothing going on, but I've been bleeding from my butt for 6 months. This is extremely important for me to get in and see you. And she goes, I'm sure you'll get through. I'll talk to the doctor and have him call you. So David waits, and I'm like, you're supposed to start your drugs in half an hour. And he's like, yeah. And I said, so you need to wait like 25 minutes and then call them back and say, I need to start my drugs. Am I getting in or not? So he does this, and she says, oh, the doctor hasn't called you. Well, he's in a meeting right now. I don't know where these doctors have meetings. If there's any doctors listening to this, I apologize. I'm not trying to make fun of your profession, but every time you call, a doctor is in a meeting, and I would understand if they were in an appointment, but what are you doing in a meeting? Like, you have patients to see. I don't understand what you're doing in these meetings. Anyway, so the doctor's in a meeting, and David's like, well, I got to take these drugs. And she's like, well, just hold off until you hear from us. If you don't hear from us in an hour, give us a call again. So he calls her, and we are at the grocery store at this point. And he calls her back, and she's like, oh, he hasn't called you. And she says no. And she goes, well, let me look here. So she's looking, and she goes, well, you're not even supposed to see this doctor. You've been with another doctor. And so to schedule an appointment with the other doctor, you need to talk to his nurse. And he was like, okay, does he not have a receptionist that I can talk to schedule an appointment with her? And she's like, no, he doesn't have a receptionist. I will drop his nurse an email. And David says, can I have her phone number so I can call her and talk to her? She doesn't have a phone number. We email her, and then she will call you when she has time. And so David's like, okay. Like, in like what world? Like, we've firmly stepped into the Twilight Zone at this point. Like, scheduled with the wrong doctor. This other doctor doesn't even have a receptionist. We have to talk to his nurse. Anyway, all the things. So it's Tuesday, and David called, or she finally calls him back on Tuesday and says, what's going on? Tell me your symptoms. So he like goes into detail and scared the crap out of me. And by the time he was done, I was kind of just looking at him, and he goes, I made that sound a lot worse because I want to get in and get the colonoscopy. And I was like, okay, good. Because, like, you scared me. You hadn't told me half of that. And so, anyway, so they scheduled him. They were like, okay, we're getting you in. The doctor's coming in for a cancer patient on Friday, and your symptoms scare us bad enough. We want to get you in. And it was like, really? Okay, well, I'm glad you're finally listening. Anyway, so we go in, come to find out it's Crohn's disease, which is such a better diagnosis than cancer. I mean, huge. And we're going to just treat that from home. I feel completely equipped to be able to handle that. He and I had a long conversation after the loopiness of the drugs wore off, and he feels confident to leave that with me. His bleeding has already stopped in just under a week. Yeah. Just over, well, it stopped like the next day, honestly. And like just with me getting supplements down him, he hasn't bled for over a week, which he hasn't gone that long at all without bleeding. So that's been an amazing miracle and answer to prayer. But I think the biggest reason I wanted to bring this up is we have so many things going on right now where in the medical field, they have created this stigma that we need them, that we need doctors. And we do need some doctors. We definitely do. Like, we need heart surgeons. We need doctors that are going to cut us open and remove body parts that are doing whatever they're doing wrong. Like, we need that. We definitely do. But there's so much that is unnecessary in our medical field. And this last week, 2 weeks, we have seen them say that themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, if you think about it, the fact that the doctors have canceled all, quote, unnecessary appointments, they've canceled 90% of their appointments. That doctor had 2 appointments that week. 2 appointments. The cancer patient and my husband. And he's not seeing my husband again. So that means that doctor has 1 patient that is important for him to come in. Like, that's a big deal, you guys, to realize that the doctors are saying themselves, to see me is unnecessary for 90% of you. And I realize in the doctor's defense, we have a lot of people who aren't eating right and aren't living right, and they get, a pain in their knee and they want drugs to fix it without changing their lifestyle and their diet. And so they go in and they get the drug, and then then they get side effects from that drug. And before you know it, the doctor's seeing them full time to deal with all the side effects from all the drugs that the patients are asking for. And I understand that. I definitely understand that. And that is our fault as a people, as the people outside of the medical field. That's on us, definitely. But there's like also been this hysteria that has been vamped up around the medical field. And I mean, there's so many times where I'll say something like, oh man, my elbow feels funny, or, my periods are off, or my husband's bleeding from his butt. And people say, have you seen a doctor? Like, that's the first thing. What did the doctor say? And the question is, do I need to see the doctor for this? Do I need to go in? Because they just said that it's unnecessary themselves. Right? Obviously, they got my husband in. Obviously, that was considered a necessary thing. IVF is another one, and I know we talked about this in our last podcast as well. But all IVF cycles have been canceled. Like, that it literally breaks my heart. It literally breaks my heart. Again, you know how I feel about IVF. You know what my beliefs are on that. But the amount of emotional trauma that is being added to a couple who cannot conceive, to tell them that their cycle is unnecessary when they've been told that every cycle is necessary. Every single chart is necessary. Every single temperature is necessary. Every single symptom is necessary. Like, we cinch down into this thing where we're, again, temping every morning, and we're charting, and we're checking our mucus, and we're shooting ourselves with shots, and we're doing all these horrible things to our body. And then to be told that is all unnecessary because a cold broke out, not in this neighborhood, 5 states away, on the other side of the world. And so therefore your dream of having a baby is unnecessary. And this is why I do what I do, because I don't want to trust my fertility to someone who thinks that my fertility is unnecessary, that my baby is unnecessary, that my family is unnecessary, because that is what they're saying. And they're saying that 90% of what they do is unnecessary. And I think that is very, very important to recognize, that by their own admission, most of what the medical field is doing is completely unnecessary. And so we as people need to look at that and say, okay, what is necessary to go in, and what can I treat at home? Again, most people with Crohn's disease would be in the doctor's office. They wanted to schedule a follow-up with him. In fact, they drew blood work for him, which I let them do because I don't even know what they were testing. So I'm curious to see what the results come back from that, because I don't even know what they were doing with that. $600 in lab tests. And then they prescribed him a medication, and we went down to the pharmacy, and I told him, I said, you're probably not going to take this, but whatever it is, we'll pick it up, take it up to Ishpeming with us. We're going to visit family, and research it when we get up there and decide if you're going to take it. And he's like, okay. And we get there, and it's $1,200 for.
And he's loopy right now.
And he's
that.
extremely loopy. Yes.
I was in the backstory of this part of the story.
Yes. Oh my gosh, he was so loopy. It was so funny. And and then he started fighting like, I'm fine. I'm like, you can barely walk. We're having like conversations, and he's like, it was really cute. He's like, stop treating me. He was trying to get his pants on, and he kept missing. And I was trying to help him, and he's like, I got it. I was like, okay. It took him like 5 minutes to get his pants on. And it was precious. He also talked a lot more, so for ladies who have quieter husbands, maybe get a hold of whatever this anesthesia is for date night, because he became a chatty Cathy. I mentioned that too. I said, we're going to get some of this for date night, because boy, it just opened you right up. But yeah, so it's $1,200 for the medication that they wanted him to have. And I was like, you know what? No, we're not going to do this. Like, I don't even need to look into this at this point. Like, by that time, I had like a half an hour to process everything. And I was like, in my head, I already know what we're going to do, all the things. And the pharmacist actually tells me, oh, I can't let you walk out of here without pills in your hand. And I just looked at her like, and in my head, I was like, do we live in Soviet Russia? Like, are you, I almost said, are you going to come to my house and make sure he takes them too? Like, like, what do you mean I can't walk out of here without pills in my hand? And I said, instead, I said, I need to get him home into bed, like right now. And she goes, oh yeah, you do that and you come back. And I said, okay. I didn't go back in case any of you are wondering. But I looked up the side effects of this drug. I don't even remember what it's called at this point. It's way back in our text messages.
Yeah.
I
just remember again, the side effects were like, oh no. I just remember telling horrific. You, no.
Like horrific, like mental issues, like heart issues, acid reflux, diarrhea, constipation, like everything.
The typical, everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, okay, no, we're not doing this, you know? And so anyway, again, we've been treating it naturally. And so I really want to stress that I encourage people to go to the doctor for a diagnosis. I do, because it's important to know what you're dealing with. And I'm not trying to brag, but I'm very proud of myself, because for the last 6 months before this, I was treating this as though it was Crohn's, IBS, ulcerative colitis, a digestion issue. That's what all those are. They're all what you're eating and your lifestyle. They're all connected. So you treat them all the same. And so I was really proud of myself, because when I got the diagnosis, I was actually standing there and I like smiled, because I was like, yes, I'm on it. Like, I was treating this perfectly. Like, and honestly, if it had been colon cancer, we probably would have switched a few things up, but it would have just meant we attacked it more rigorously than what we were attacking. Yeah, exactly. But so I'm pointing this out to you to say, go to the doctor, get a diagnosis, and then leave and go treat it yourself. And if you don't know how to treat it, reach out to Bridget or I. If we don't know how to treat it, we have contacts who do. And it's one of those things where you can treat a lot of this stuff from home. You can. We were talking just before we started actually recording about how we will never get chemotherapy. Like, there is no reason to get chemotherapy. If I cannot treat it from home when it comes to cancer, on the cancer issue alone, I'm not going to say this about other diseases. If I cannot treat it from home, then I will die at home. End of story. Like, I am not going to go through.
Yeah, the side effects of what I've seen people go through with that are not worth it.
No, it's not. It's not worth it on any level. And so I will, if I'm going to die from cancer, I will die from cancer. That's the way it is. Again, that's really only that disease. Like, I'm not going to die from a broken leg at home, because I can't treat a broken leg. I'm going to go in and get my broken leg treated, right? be reasonable is what we're saying. Like, take into consideration, okay, what is wrong with me and what are they going to do when I get there? I can go in for a diagnosis, and then even if you decide to go back to the doctor for treatment, leave first. Don't schedule the appointment right now. Walk out, go home, do your own research. And if you decide in the end, hey, this is above me and I really want to go do treatment, go do treatment. But make sure that that's what you want, because you have to realize the medical system is really set up like the perfect sales pitch, right? You go in to buy a boat, and they show you the boat and how beautiful the boat is, and they tell you about how successful you're going to look if you are captain of this boat, and they even have a captain's hat, and they put it on you, and they let you stand at the front of the bridge, and you look amazing and you feel great, and in the end they sell you on the boat. That is a weak sales pitch compared to, you have a disease, this is the next step to fix it, when can you come back in? Because I guarantee you, if somebody told you that, you're scheduling an appointment. You're coming back in because they have the answer. But here's the thing, they don't have the answer to a lot of things. A lot of things, they're just shooting in the dark. Because in a lot of areas, and this is a totally different podcast episode, a lot of their tests don't work like they claim that they do. So it's very important to recognize that there's a lot of things that they don't actually have the answer for. And even if they do, there's drastic side effects on the other end of that that are not worth going through when you can fix it at home with zero side effects, right? Like, my husband has gained probably 10 pounds in the last week just from eating healthy again. He could stand to lose a little bit of weight. Like, it's good that he lost what he did, but it was an unhealthy weight loss. And he's like, he looks flush again. His cheeks are pink again. He's healthy. He has energy. I mean, you guys, he couldn't like even get off the couch. He had so little energy a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Like, that's how bad it was. And so I am convinced that if what I was doing was wrong, that would not be happening, right? Like, he would continue, his energy stores would be continuing to drain. He would be continuing to bleed. He would be saying, man, there's still pressure in my belly. There's another blockage. There's pain. Instead of laying in bed and rolling over and going, you know, honey, I just want to tell you, like, my guts feel really good right now. Like, and he told me that the other day. He's like, I don't even know how to describe it. They just feel good. And I was like, that's your body feeling healthy and being rejuvenated and all the things. And then he told me last night, he goes, do normal people feel themselves digesting their food? And I said, I do. I said, I think most people who listen to their bodies do. I don't know if other people do. I said, like, I know a few years ago, I never noticed. It would be like, oh, I don't know what that was. That's weird. But now I feel stuff moving, you know? And he was like, this is just so weird. And I was like, you're listening to your body. So it's important to do that and to tune into that. And I know I've talked a lot about the colonoscopy and a little bit about the IVF. Those are really my two big examples of we need to be questioning these doctors, and we need to be asking ourselves what is necessary, because we are in charge of what is necessary in our health. It's our choice that this is necessary. My husband's colonoscopy was necessary. An IVF cycle, if you've chosen to go that route, and I hope that you know all the consequences and the pros and cons of that, if you've chosen to go that route, that is your choice, and that is necessary. That is absolutely necessary. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hit it on the head, like all of those things. And I think the only things that I wanted to add to that were like you have actually said this to me before. You've put it in beautiful terminology. Is like, when you walk into those doctor's offices, you are giving up everything because they want to use what they have. You're not going, like, they try so hard to pretend that they are open to both worlds of holistic methods and nutrition. You know, you go in and you sit in the lobby, and on their little TV, they have things of how you eat healthy and how you do this and walk 5 miles a day and playing repeatedly in the background and whatever. But the moment you go behind that closed door, it's, well, I can give you whatever medication. Lifestyle isn't even brought up. And like Nicole said before, it's partly our fault, definitely our grandparents' fault, because that's what they did want, was a cure-all magic pill. Like, that definitely is there, but they're not trying either. they're not fully making the switch. Like, instead, all you hear about is people who are fighting to say, no, I can, give me 3 months to fix my diabetes by myself. Is that okay? We're asking our doctors for this permission, to do these things. And then, we go back hoping, I hope I did it good enough. I hope my numbers are right. Even though over that course of whatever time frame, you've changed all these symptoms, they're all gone, you feel amazing, and yet you still need that doctor's approval. You don't need your doctor's approval to know you're thriving and to know your body's doing well. If your body says it's doing well, it's going to show you, you're going to feel it, you're going to know it. And I mean, that leads over into your kids and everything. You can see in your kids when they're thriving and when they're failing, and when something's just off, and I think, like, at this time, like, that's something we've said repeatedly, take this time to, like, slow down and realize, why isn't this working? Why is this always bothering me about my kids or my spouse or whatever? And really hone in on what needs to change in our lifestyles to make this happen, because we have the power. And I mean, as we've said in our last podcast, but, like, clearly our world has the power to switch everything to parents working at home. We don't have to go to school, like, all these things. We've had that power for a really long time, and it's been thrown in our laps. And it really is going to be a cool, I really think our world is going in a very awesome direction with all of that. But that was our last podcast. So anyway, but all that to say, like, when you do give up walking into that doctor's office, you have to know the only recommendations you are going to get is Western medicine. You cannot, they are not trained. Doctors only get 1 hour of nutrition. Nurses only get 3 hours of nutrition. Like, they have no knowledge whatsoever of how the body truly works on a daily basis.
And I have done this. Test your doctor. Say to them, well, when I was Googling this, and watch their reaction. If they sigh, if they get glass over, if they look at you like you don't have the right to Google your symptoms, you don't want to do anything that doctor tells you to do. Because
he thinks he's God.
He thinks he's God. He thinks he has the only answer. He thinks that you do not have the right to find out answers to your questions. And what they want is, because, again, I agree. I have a grandmother that was basically a drug addict because she wanted every pill in the book and they gave them to her. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to go in and they handed them a pill and they didn't want any answers as to what was wrong. They just wanted to keep going. The millennials aren't like that. We have questions. We have questions about what this pill does and why it does it and all the things. And so lean into that.
Well, because we're seeing the side effects. Everything we do will last 2 generations.
After us.
Yes. So whatever my mom did is affecting my kids. There's no question about that.
And I want to throw in there, a lot of people doubt that when they hear that. The biggest reason that is that my ovaries were formed in my mother's womb. All of the follicles from my eggs were formed while I was in my mother's womb. That means whatever she ate while I was in her belly was literally affecting my children, because
those eggs
were growing.
The DNA in those eggs were being formed.
And it's the same with boys. Boys, the testes and everything are growing. And it's more than that too, because I also inherited physically things. I inherited my mother's DNA. And so then my children will inherit that DNA and all of that. So there's even more that goes into that. But a lot of people look at me funny. And so when I always like to explain the egg thing, because that's the most direct process that I can explain. Like, literally.
And it is confusing because you will also hear us say that when you go into your doctor, you do not need to fill out your history or family history because it doesn't matter. And that's because it can be turned off and on. Like, what you choose to do with your life is going to change it. If you choose today, just like David and his situation, just by one day of changing everything, completely flipped his symptoms. You can either activate the bad genes or not. So that can be confusing too when we talk about that.
Right. And with that, like, he has no history of Crohn's disease in his family. I have a very strong history of ulcerative colitis in my family. And he was talking like in the car afterwards, he was like, I don't understand why you don't have this and I have this. And I said, because I've eaten better than you. I mean, yes, I eat gluten. Yes, I splurge, I cheat. I drink way too much coffee sometimes. I do things I shouldn't do to my body. But I also know when I'm getting close to that line and I turn it off. And you haven't listened to your body, and you've done all the things, and you live in a world full of toxins and chemicals, and you've been completely vaccinated, and all the things that you've done to your body, your parents didn't do to their bodies. So of course they didn't get Crohn's, because they were healthier just by default. So we're living in a totally different situation. So yes, we do affect our grandchildren's health, but they can also fix their health as well.
Fix it. And that's the hope that God, I mean, just look how God laid that out so beautifully. It is like a doomsday death sentence, but yet there's so much hope.
Absolutely.
It's so beautiful.
And how much can we fix by fixing our bodies? And then we raise our children eating cleaner, and then they raise their children eating cleaner. And soon we don't have to worry about the gluten problem of the 1900s, because hopefully we'll go back to eating real wheat at some point. They'll maybe wake up one day and say, oh, this was a stupid idea. But but yeah, so I think, again, the biggest message we wanted to get through here was just speak up for yourself. Be your own advocate, because you decide what is necessary and what is unnecessary. And we've given these doctors this power to make it just terrorizing, you know. And I even said to David at one point, in the middle of all of this, I said, I don't understand why more people aren't anti-doctor. I said, every time we've ever gone to the doctor, we have an incident like this. Like, it's always like every time.
From your first incident of being scheduled with the wrong doctor. Like,
yes, exactly.
It's kind of a big deal.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, you've got that, and then you got like my 7 years of seeing doctors for infertility, and like, I've never walked out of a doctor's office going, man, I really got some answers. I really feel good about where we're going. Like, it's always been one of those things of like, man, I just feel like crap. Like, great, you know? And so it's important that we take what we can fix and we say, hey, I got this. I got it. But thank you for the diagnosis. Check's in the mail. You know, like, that's the way we need to treat this.
Well, no one is going to care for you, your spouse, your children more than you.
Absolutely.
And that's just like that. Like, we know what is necessary and we don't, and what's not. Absolutely. No one will care more than you.
100%.
Everybody else has an underlying motive, and a mother or a wife never will.
Yes. So true. So true. Yes. So thank you for joining us on today's podcast. Yes. Go out and become your own. Yes. Yeah. All right. We will see you back here in another couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button.
And a special thank you to those who make this financially possible. To support this podcast, please follow the link in our description.
To learn more about one-on-one coaching, books, and other resources, check me out at www.nicolehagstead.com.
And check me out at thebewildlife.com.
Our intro and exit music is titled Happy Song by Pachyderm. The song is licensed under an Attribution Share Alike license.